for tradespeople, maybe. I
Yeah.
guess
Tradies, yes,
It-
all the
it's-
different types of tradies.
The tradespeople in the United States, which are all just tradies in Australia. Sparkies. What were the other ones you were rattling off?
Well, you got your chippies, your carpenters. You've got garbos, your trash men.
I just want to be clear. These are actual words used in Australia because I feel like almost like if out of context, people like, is that offensive? Or you? No, this is what people
is this
say,
is
right?
this from like a child? Is this what they call them in Bluey or something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is this politically correct? Like, are we allowed like these words like widely used in Australia? How does it work?
They are. I mean, there's it. You see signs for it. They're at the Target. There's a row, or Kmart. There's actually a section of clothing. It's like tradies, and it's all the like high vis vests and boots and stuff. And and a lot of them shop at the same one. So you'll see somebody, and you're like, I don't know what they do, but they're wearing they're wearing fluorescent yellow shirt, and you're like, I know they're a tradie, but they could be anything because they all shop at the same places. All
right. Well, homework assignment. I would like you the next time you're in such a place, take a picture of the tradies sign and send it to us because I don't know. That would just be I don't know why I think that'd be interesting. It would be good artwork for something.
What do they call a plumber? A toilety?
Oh gosh, I don't
Pipey?
know.
Seems like that. Seems like they would not use that.
Flowy?
Commode? Commode person?
Shitty.
Hey.
Oh.
Plumber name.
Every time I hear you talk about Australia,
Dunny diver.
I wish I lived there. That sounds
a
like
dunny diver.
I feel like the overall culture of that place is just like, yeah, let's just do it. Enjoy life.
I feel like it sounds a lot like Texas. Like I looked it up. I think the population of Australia, the total population, is about the same. Feels I don't know. It is. Would that be Matt? Is that a reason? It's like Sydney to Austin, as Texas is to Australia, or is it just no? It's just totally different. Does that not apply?
No. Yeah, I think. I mean, no.
There you go.
Right, California is easier to make the comparison. Yeah, because Sydney's more like Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah. It's big. It's spread out. It's got a lot of different areas. A lot going on. Bad traffic.
So that's what I was going to say. I was going to guess Sydney's like Houston. If we force fit it into Texas, right? Big, spread out. They wear suits there.
I would. Right? That seems a critical of Sydney. I don't believe that. I don't.
But it's got
fine. It's a good place. It's all right.
I would compare Houston more to like Perth or something, where it's full of
for somebody who's ever been
it's full of new money from like oil and minerals and big gleaming. But unlike Houston, it's kind of empty.
Maybe we should we'll put this in the after show. Maybe we make this some after show homework for our Australian friends. They have a good audience down there. Maybe they can write in and tell us what state, if they had to compare Australia to a state, what would it be? And they could pick Sydney or a couple cities and tell us what cities.
Well, California makes sense because you got Sydney to LA. You've got Melbourne to San Francisco.
Like California, I don't know. There's like you said at the beginning, like there's a vibe in Australia. Like let's just do it. Let's just
you've got Sacramento to Canberra.
That's the same thing. It's like what we should do. We should just do it. Like let's just do it. Whereas in California, I think there's a lot more like what we should do. We should meet about it. We should discuss it, right? And that's not even a judgment about which is better. Like there's definitely times where one is needed, but I feel like Australia is just like, let's just do it. Let's go for it, whatever it is. So anyway, all right, Cote, since we need to get cracking today, why don't we begin?
Get cracking. So that's a Britishism, I think, right? Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
That's a good one, Matt. Okay. Hold on a moment. Let me have some of my peppermint tea. Hilda's favorite, according to that Cabin in the Woods episode. I don't think it's called that. Anyways. Well, I've been considering a new plank, a new tenet to the default lifestyle. And I don't have this quite articulated, but maybe we can work it out a little bit here. I think part of the default's lifestyle, now you could call this go with the flow, But I think part of it is you don't want to try to like outsmart the system. You just want to like figure out what's going on with the system and you just go with it. And like I said, I don't have this fleshed out, but the first thing that popped into mind, and this is not reflective of any of my strategies because I do this, I guess, is like you should just put your money in index funds. Right? Like you don't want to think that like I'm going to pick stuff, I'm going to spend time on it. I could have all the upside, but then I might also have all the risk and stress of it. Just index funds, right? And like, or you could be like, I don't know. I'm not going to try to like optimize, the right amount of solar panels versus this, that, or the other. Just like I'm just going to do whatever is normal. I'm going to look around and see what other people are doing. Or what my regional local government is telling me I should be doing. And, barring being an asshole or a bad person or evil, I'm just going to do that. I'm not going to try to like, I'm not going to build like a bunch of generators in my basement, things like that. I'm just going to go with the flow. Just go with it. So that's what I got so far. I think that and that Apple has introduced a $79 or pound sterling pencil to go with the iPad. I think it's representative of that, right? Like eventually, it'll sort itself out. You don't want to pay for the more expensive pencil; they'll have a cheaper one.
Wait, that's
so
the cheap pencil?
Yes, exactly. If you think if you think that's expensive, wait till I tell you how much the other ones cost.
Wow.
But
yeah,
that like you just invest in the Apple thing, and tide goes in, tide goes out. Like eventually, you're going to be able to get that pencil, no matter what your situation is, because the price is going to go down.
Well, more importantly, are you getting the new? You're our resident note taker, Cote.
Yes.
Will you be getting the new Apple Pencil?
Well, I already have 2 of the expensive pencils, so I've got the Cadillac Escalades. I'm not going to buy the Tahoes.
So you will not be getting
yes.
the new pencil.
However, and there is, I've noticed there's a major difference that the pressure doesn't work on it. So when you press on the expensive Apple Pencil, it varies the way it operates. And what I've read is that the new Apple Pencil doesnn't have that, the USB-C one. But I think that's probably one of those things that if you had never had it, you would never know that it existed. So you wouldn't care that it didn't exist. And in fact, oftentimes when I'm using the pencil, I wish that it was just constant instead of like varying based on pressure.
So a downgrade would be an upgrade for you.
Maybe. And also you can charge it with USB-C, which I think is our new, as we heard from the 30-minute section of the last Apple keynote from the VP of cables. I mean, that's kind of like the new way of thinking in Apple land. USB-C is.
How long do you think it will take? So my wife just got we got her a new phone, so she's on the USB-C phone. And I was like, well, this is part of the great migration, right? And of course, she's immediately like, why are the cables different? I'm like, where do I begin? But anyway, so it's like,
why is anything different?
Well, you're like first, Germany invaded France
I mean, it's just like,
in 1915. That's what started this whole thing.
But I don't remember what is it called? The old pin connector, the 32-bit or
lightning cable?
No,
no,
that. It was like
that one.
The pins, whatever it was. It was like, I was like, how long did it take before you finally got rid of like nothing in your house had that? I got rid of everything that was using it.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking to myself, like, all right, well, how long is it going to take? Because I was looking around, I got the AirPods use USB-C, I got a keyboard, I got a mouse, I got this trackpad. So when you start counting it up, I'm like, man, this could be like, is this?
Oh, you mean the lightning cables?
Yeah, these are all lightning cables. So it's how long will it be before I replace everything that I currently has a lightning thing will be converted over? Like, I don't know. Is that you're the VP of cables here, Coach? Is that a 5-year migration project? Is that
I'm here to invest in adapters.
Oh, I'm gonna add another plank to the default lifestyle, and I think maybe the I'm not gonna say I think maybe the VP of cables might be heavily involved in the default lifestyle because he enjoys the churn of stuff, and I think maybe part of the default lifestyle is every year you look around your house, and if there's a cable that's not plugged into something, you throw it away. Or you take it to, someone else's house and you're just getting rid of the cables, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like now, I don't want to belittle spending money. But I feel like, Brandon, your problem might be solved if you just like spend a bunch of money,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Like if
that is always
That's
the
always
thing where
Apple's solution.
you can just upgrade everything, right? And throw out
and that would be going with the flow. What you want to do is you want to very carefully watch the videos of regular people doing things during Apple keynotes, and that's your new lifestyle. That's what you're doing. So you kind of like you're running on beaches, you're taking cute pictures of friends, you're dressing like Gen Xers who are in their 30s, which I guess is not
You've
really
got your
Gen
you've
Xer.
got your cheese grater Mac Pro. You've got your Apple Hi-Fi stereo.
Yeah,
You've
you're
got
always smiling.
a lot of
got all
drone
those
shots,
failed
a lot of
devices.
fading
Yeah.
in and out of buildings with the drone shots. So
And you're using USB-C cables. That's what's happening. So I think that's
I've
your
never heard
solution.
of lightning cables. That's my takeaway from the videos. I don't know what you're
Exactly.
talking about. Those don't exist.
I would love to walk around with Tim Cook one day just to like see and just like see what technology he uses. Not like not what they set him up with, not with his office for show, but like, all right, what in his house, for example, like does he have any old Apple? Like, does he have an Apple TV that's like old, or is he like is everything
the latest?
immediately upgraded? Right? It's just like he never is more than.
Do you think he beta test stuff for them? Or do you think he gets nightly builds, or do you think he's more of like, you know?
I like this Tim Cook fanfic we're going into, because I think it could go a couple of ways. I think he could be the kind of person who does not install the iOS beta because he's like, I use this stuff, right? And like,
right.
I'm not gonna install a beta just because it's fun. Like I gotta like determine where shipping happens or whatever shit goes on there.
I got a calendar to sync.
Yeah. Or he could also be the kind of person who's like, you know what kind of technology I use? My 5 assistants. Like
that's where I'm going. It's like his 5 assistants are keeping all of his devices running nightlies and debugging everything that goes wrong every single day. And he just magically walks into rooms and he's like, all of our products are golden.
Right. But now the third scenario you brought up, Matt Ray, which I like the best, which is just like pure nostalgia. You walk in there and he's like, oh yeah, I'm still working on an iMac. I mean, they didn't make a better one. Or I should say, we didn't make a better one. This is a great machine. It does everything you need. I like that click of the mouse. The whole mouse frame moves down when you need to click. Love that.
But to your point, like his persona of like the executive persona I have of him is that like he's very busy. He's extremely focused in on the numbers and wants to make sure everything is running well operationally. And so that kind of person to me is like, if it is working, if he didn't work at Apple, I'd be like, he has a Dell laptop, right? Mm-hmm. He has Microsoft Excel. He has Microsoft Outlook calendar, and that stuff does not change. He has, an exact dashboard Excel spreadsheet that he uses, and he is day to day. He's going to meeting to meeting to meeting, going over the numbers, making sure things are good, dealing with problems, and he does not want to spend 1 second messing around with consumer or technology or that's going to take away from him getting the to-do list done. Now obviously he's at Apple and stuff like that, so but that's just my the persona I've created of him. So he seems like somebody that would be like, no, it's working, it's fine, I don't have time for this today. I don't want someone updating my iPhone to the new iPhone 15. My iPhone X is fine. Let's get on with it. Can we bring up the numbers from Singapore? Let's look at that over. That's my I envision he's like.
I guess what you're saying is if you could still use WordPerfect, he would be using that.
I do.
Apple has a whole product line of Office clones, right? I love the fact that nobody assumes he uses Pages or Numbers or
maybe
Sheets.
Okay.
If we had to bet the odds that he knew, if we gave him a task, an Excel task, right? We gave him a CSV. We said, here's the financial data. We need you to build a spreadsheet and these kind of charts. If we gave it to him and said, your life depends on this, your life depends on you completing this task quickly and accurately, what program, Matt, do you think he would get?
Hopefully this is going to be in the second season of Squid Games.
I think
I know.
I think it would be awesome. Like, he would go to Excel. Like, for sure he would be like, I would use Excel. So I think that would be the ultimate challenge.
That is the ultimate defaults lifestyle. It worked 20 years ago. It works today. Not changing. Love it. Yeah.
Sounds like Amazon's embracing the defaults lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, speaking of defaults lifestyle, as you were saying, Matt Ray, Like it does seem like I don't know what they were using before, but Amazon is signing a now. There's two things that are astounding about Amazon using the Office 365. Is that what they still call it? I
Yeah.
don't really know.
It is.
The SaaS version of Office, and can I just say, pretty good, except for when you try to share documents with someone. I just feel like they got a lot going up there in Redmond and probably elsewhere. They really got to get a Tiger team on that sharing panel when you just share something. So confusing. If you just go look at the Google thing, they got that one nailed over there. Just look at that, take some screenshots, maybe burn them afterwards in case there's some sort of legal action, but just like check out how they're doing it. Aces. That's all you need to do. We never need to evolve how you share a document, not this bizarre system that Office uses. I don't even know what's happening there. Anyhow, so it seems like Amazon's going to become a big Office 365 thing. It makes me wonder what they were using before for word processing.
The reportedly they were just using the uncloud versions of Office, right?
Okay,
the retail versions of Office.
So not such a big deal. Not such
no,
a big deal,
it's not such a big deal. But they do have their own in-house competitors
for Teams and stuff like that.
Yeah, but
and now what I was more interested in is that it's said to be $1 billion mega deal. Now, mega deal is a great word. But I didn't look enough into it to see if that was annual or a 3 or 5 year term or something like that. But I wanted to try to compute. I'm assuming annual, so maybe this is not a correct computation. But I looked up on the wonderful Statista or whatever it's called site. They have, I think maybe this was a year or two ago, they have 1.46 million full and part-time employees. And so, I'm not going to exclude like people who, I assume everyone would want to use it, would need to use it, right? Because you're going to send documents around to people and stuff, but maybe not.
All the drivers, all the packers, no.
Yeah. They probably have to take like compliance training and like fill out documents. Maybe not them. I don't know. So maybe knock off.
I think that's half their employees.
Yeah.
I think half their employees are like, warehouse folks.
Okay. So we'd have to increase this even more. So let's say when you knock that off by half, which is like I like to say, I have a philosophy degree, so I can't do math unless it's in Greek letters. But like, I think that would be 700,000 people, if I did that correctly. And so I'd calculated that with 1.4 million full and part-time employees, that would be $684 a person a year. You could divide that by 3 if it's a 3-year term, et cetera, et cetera. But now it's going to go up to $1,200 a year. If we divided that by 3, that would be $400 a year, I think. Am I getting that math right? I don't have numbers in front of me.
My guess though is without knowing the deal, it seems like it will be for more than 1 year, right? And also, I think they probably did it in a way that probably like the rest of us, although it would be really interesting to know because obviously Amazon's very good at, or AWS is very good at like charging you for every little thing. But I think you would probably try to do a deal where it was like, hey, we're not going to try to count every single employee, right? We're going to like just have
just
like
a flat thing,
some general number, and this is going to let all the employees in Amazon, even if they just need it for like a short period of time, or they just need Outlook on the web, it would be my guess. So, but I don't know. It's a good question though about like, because also too, I guess the other thing would be for any other company, you would think, well, like a company this size, there'd be a lot of discounting that would go on, but like I don't know. Like the Microsoft, Amazon, I don't know if does Amazon ask for discounts? Is Microsoft willing to give it? Is it just two different groups so they don't really care? Like I'm sure the Microsoft salesperson is happy to sell it to Amazon, and I'm sure the Amazon IT people are like, yeah, let's like everyone's been complaining, let's just get this done. So like there's probably not a lot of animosity there.
Do you think anyone from procurement went to like AWS and said, look, we need you guys to launch an Office competitor, an Office 365? Look at this, $1 billion. Really, tell me there's not like a dozen pizza teams they could deploy to save some money.
All right, so put aside the Office for a second, because I think the really interesting part here, and I think the part that we will all maybe eventually be able to see, is do they go from their internal Chime web-based conferencing product to Team? Because that's like anyone that meets with Amazon, myself included, they use Chime, which honestly, I have no problem with Chime. It's just, The only thing about it is just use. I only use it with Amazon, so that's the one thing. It's like, oh, I gotta like turn this thing on when I meet with Amazon. But other than that, like when we're using it, it seems totally fine. That said, though, it will be interesting, like because that's the part I think we're all going to be able to see. It's like, well, if you have a meeting with Amazon, and then they start suddenly sending you the Teams link, because that would be kind of shocking. I would almost be like, wow. And then of course, someone said that they use Slack within Amazon as well. So it's like, how does that all shake out? So that part, I'm fascinated to see what their web conferencing tool of choice. And then of course, what happens to Chime? Does Chime end of life, or is it just, does it just sort of like limp along for a long period of time? I want to know.
Did they make that on their own? Is that an in-house thing? Chime?
Yeah, I don't know if it's an acquisition, but like it's definitely it is their.
Yeah, it's definitely theirs. Nobody else uses it.
Yeah, so
maybe they could offload it to GoToMeeting or Citrix or whoever.
Don't they own like WebEx?
No, Cisco owns WebEx.
At some point, Citrix owned one of those things, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. I think they have a GoToMeeting. Is that what it is? I think that's what theirs.
Yeah. Well, what a testament to Zoom that we're just like, I don't know. These things we use for like 10 or 15 years. Who knows who owns them?
But like to the point here, the larger point though is like I actually think the Microsoft Office bundle is stronger than ever. Like I always think to myself, like, man, there's a lot of other things, and maybe Google's gonna take it down. But I think at this point, like it's almost passed down generation to generation. Because I was like, well, maybe the new generation, Gen Z, will finally switch over. But like, what will happen is they will eventually get to work, and some of them will go on to work in finance. And as soon as they get to finance, they're going to pull up their Google spreadsheets, and some old person, maybe a Gen X or maybe a millennial, will be like, no, that's not how we do things here. And they're going to give them Excel and train them in Excel. And the cycle will just continue on and on. And then, of course, like the Word doc, as you talked about the sharing, it's like, well, you're never totally sure if the Word doc sharing is working. So what do? You send the email attachment around V1, V2, BW, VW3, put the date stamp, and you just pass down this tradition. And it's like, it can never go away. Every generation thinks it's going to do better, but it doesn't happen. It just gets passed on. So
and then you have to explain what that save icon actually represents to the kids these days.
Like why is it a disc? Like what is that thing?
They're like disc.
Yeah. Oh man, you're gonna get me started on the sharing thing. And then sometimes when you email it, it does share it.
Could, right? Yeah. Sometimes it just pops up in the emails, the link that's being shared, and you're like, wow, that's awesome, right? And then
all of a sudden you're in SharePoint and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. And like, I guess you could go use a web interface, but then it's really weird. Like,
yeah, well, then you can't edit anything, or it's totally wrong. Then you're not worried. You're worried about the formatting stuff. But like, is there a way out? I don't know, Matt. What about your kids? Your oldest is in college, I assume.
Probably all Google Docs.
Just using Google Docs. When I guess
all Google Docs.
He'll be the first one we can like really watch up close. When he finally gets into the workforce here, maybe in a few years, we'll see. Is he forced to to learn Word in Office in lieu of Google Docs? I want to know.
No, they are. They get, they're all about the sharing and the comments, and I'm like, can you make me an editor? And they're like, no, Dad, I only want comments from you. I'm like, whoa.
Oh, that's sophisticated.
Whoa.
Hey. All right. I think there you go. I think the generation, whatever, are we back to A or B yet? It's the give it to free to the students program is going to work.
That works well.
Yeah. Which is good. I was thinking that's a great pitch for a company is like, and actually, it's probably not a great pitch because maybe all the VCs and other people don't use Office and they think poorly of it. But if you were to go in and be like, that Office business model, that's what we're going to go for.
Yeah.
You see
good
the
luck
chart
with
over
that.
Here? Yeah. Well, speaking of business models, now we didn't get to talk about this last episode, but Brandon has been doing an extensive study on Bitcoin. And like what's going on with how do you say it? SBF? Is that
SBF?
right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And now I dilettantly read a little bit of the stink around the Michael Lewis book. I love that Liar's Poker, the story of just buying big buckets of guacamole to show off the money that you had. I think about that maybe every quarter. Just really stuck with me. But like apparently this new book, something's wrong with it. about this big trial. The guy, the
Yeah,
frog
Going
guy with the big
Infinite: The
hair.
Rise and Fall of a New Tycoon by Michael
But
Lewis. Yep.
but inform us. Give us the software defined talk angle on what's going on here, Brandon. What's up with the the case going on, the getting too close to your source? What's happening?
Yeah, so I've read it all, so you didn't have to. So I would say, or listen to it all, mostly on Audible. So I guess my whole summary of it would be SPF. Basically, it's interesting in the sense of like someone that takes an idea of like trading, which is sort of like this idea of expected value, which obviously, it's like anytime you have a bet with good expected value, you should like not only make that bet, but in his way of thinking, you should like put everything on it, right? So if it's like 51.49, you can do it. And so, he's sort of taken this idea, and from what I kind of read and what I gathered, and my take is sort of like he literally lived his entire life around this. Like every decision became like an expected value equation. Like, should I go to lunch and should I eat this? Should I, date this person? Was all about expected value. So it's like, I don't know, it's just interesting when it's sort of like people that are, especially people that are very smart, at least academically wise, sort of like latch on to like just one principle, and that is the only principle they use to make decisions. And that seems to be like, to me, ultimately, that's where the entire thing kind of went wrong. Was sort of like, well, they were, making all these bets. They essentially got made some bad bets, but then ultimately, I think, SBF just felt like I can make all this money back. And I have, the expected value is that I will be able to do it. So takes the customer funds, uses them, but it doesn't work out. The bet doesn't work out. And therefore it all becomes like this fraud, embezzlement, or stealing customer stuff. So in the end, it's sort of like, it's a pretty simple story when you actually get to the bottom of it. And then there's only two books that I think kind of like almost are like talk a lot about the same things, but they sort of kind of different takes on it. So Going Infinite: The Rise and Fall of a New Tycoon, that's the Michael Lewis book, where it's an interesting read in the sense he tells lots of interesting stories. But of course, now I'm a little bit like, you have to, I don't know, a little bit more skeptical of it, because it's like, he's certainly, Michael Lewis has been known to maybe embellish the story to make it sound better, but he's very much like, hey, SBF had good intentions, just found himself in like a bad situation, and things went wrong, but what are you going to do? Life happens. And then there's another book, Number Goes Up, which is much more skeptical of the entire thing, right? That basically just says it was fraud start to finish, crypto's fraud start to finish. And so you can kind of read, either take on it. So I think, the whole thing is kind of interesting, but I guess the part that was ultimately interesting was like, one, this idea of living through expected value, but also two, it's like, I think the part you would really like to know if you could talk to SBF would be like, was it all just a scam, like from the start to finish? Because he seems to be very well aware of like how to manipulate people. And one of the things was he was very aware of like how he dressed and like his hair. Like he realized that like that was a real advantage. People thought he was sort of like this super smart, weird looking science kid. And he really used that to his advantage in a lot of ways. And he seemed to be very savvy about it. So I think, for anyone listening to this, it's like, if you want to eventually have a journalist write about you, dress very unconventionally for whatever it is you're doing, because they bring it up. Every single article will talk about it. And it seems like he's been really good at manufacturing an image that I think, gave him a lot of power, which was interesting as well. So, but having said all that, it seems like, I've been following the case. It seems very unlikely he gets out of this. It seems like the trade here, his trade or the expected value, it's like, I don't know, it's probably like 1 in 100 he gets off. But we'll see what happens in the next few weeks.
Well, it definitely worked for Shingy. He had the appearance, and everyone bought that he was a digital prophet. He definitely had the advantage of everyone was like, he's the Bitcoin prophet, right? He's the guy who, I mean, weren't there like, cover articles about him in magazines like before
totally.
everything went, sideways.
And he was really good. He also understood like people, he seems like the kind of person like, I don't get business, I don't get the media, but like he seems to have figured out like, no, he hired quite a few people to be spokesmen or spokespeople for the products or his services. And he seems to have used it all to his advantages. The other thing, if you ever want to read, it's all free. There's a bunch of interesting kind of anecdotes that Matt Levine covers a lot in his newsletter, especially about Jane Street, about like what it's like to work there. In the trading, and even the interview, basically that was actually from the book. They talked about how you interview at Jane Street. It's like, you actually don't go in and do any type of traditional interview, you go in and you play all of these like kind of weird math games, like, you know, what you would bet on and how you would bet, and you create all these different bets. And it's just all about, you know, how good you are at sort of mental math and expected value. And it was like, wow, this is just interesting. It was like the whole idea of like, you would just walk in and play like these weird math games all day long. And if you're really good at it, they hire you. It's like, I was like, oh, that whole process was sort of fascinating. And then they talk a lot about the training program where they have the traders kind of bet against each other, which was also kind of interesting. I was like, so that was just a whole nother world. I had never really kind of understood how the interview process works. So that was kind of interesting.
I remember reading about that at some point. Yeah, that is odd. So, but I want to understand this living your life by expected value, which is different than enterprise value, I guess, in the EV value in a share prices or whatever that is. And so it seems like the end answer is if there's a greater chance of something being successful, you should do that. Right. No matter what.
Right.
And then I guess that's maybe why you have weird math games. Well, maybe not why you have weird math games, but then you have to build up the skill of like getting the correct analysis, or at least what do they call it? You gotta have good confidence interval, and you figure like if you screw up, you spread that across enough things that you're gonna be up. It's kind of like the opposite of gambling in Las Vegas, where
so that's kind of what Jane Street does. Jane Street essentially, you know, if you kind of at a very high level, is they hire all of these like smart people to kind of do this. And what they do is they kind of give them all some pool of capital, and they just kind of tell them to be aggressive. And so what seems to have gone on here is sort of like SBF sort of kind of got to the point of like, well, listen, I just like bet big no matter what. Right. So, and I think other places like, no, even if you have like good odds, there's always the possibility that it goes wrong. Right. So like you have to kind of manage your bets. But like, there's a relatively famous article or interview, I think, with Tyler Cohen when he interviews SBF. And he says something like, you know, if the odds are like 51-49 that like I flip this coin and either humanity's gone or humanity's like twice as good, right, of what it is, like what would you do? He'd be like, yeah, you flip the coin, right? He's like, yeah, I make the bet, and I assume it comes up. And it was like, well, that's crazy, right? Because the downside is so great that, you know, it outweighs even the potential of this other good thing happening. But that seems to be what the way, at least the caricature
I see.
of him is, that like he is just always doing that. If the expected value is in my advantage, I'm going to bet big, and I'm going to do that through my entire life. And it's like, no, it just doesn't work like that. You can't, you know.
Right. I think that's good. And it's helped clarify that new plank I wanted to add to the defaults lifestyle, which is in a coin flip, there's actually a third option, which is do nothing. And
right.
Everything's chill. And so like you can just be like, how about I don't risk humans dying? Like, yeah, I'm not forced to make this bet, what you're saying. I just go along with that.
Which is a valid choice.
Yeah. And then I mean, to point out the obvious, like the other problem is like, well, you know, there's like laws.
So well, clearly he didn't think those applied to him.
Yeah. And that is true. Like laws, it seems like when it comes to finance, only kick in when you lose money. They don't really kick in when you're making money.
That leads to like an interesting potential footnote to this whole story. So the very long story short is they're trying to get $8 billion is like what was like lost, right? So through different ways of like clawing back money, they've gotten a lot of it back. But the thing that sits out there is Anthropic, which is a very, you know, one of the high flying AI startups, right? So he invested $500 million in Anthropic, you know, at very, very early on. So at least at the moment, right, you could see a scenario where that 500 million becomes, you know, 8 billion or more if Anthropic continues to grow at the rate and the valuation rate. So it's just this weird link between kind of the crypto world and the AI world that is just sort of like, you know, at the end of the day, it could work out. Like, I mean, people, like if you ask all the people today who were owed $8 billion, it's like, listen, you can we'll give you maybe 80 cents on the dollar, or if you want to risk it, we'll just, you know, we'll cut you in on you're now
let it ride.
You're going to let it ride on the Anthropic.
We'll let it ride lifestyle. That's the opposite of the default lifestyle.
Right. No, I mean, I guess that's the question. Is like, if they let it ride, it's like there seems to be like, I bet you if we were to ask SBF, we'd be like, the expected value probably is good. Just let it ride, see what happens, which is just like
Uh-huh.
in itself mind blowing. But then people are like, well, if he gets the money back, is he
No.
not guilty? It's like, no, it doesn't work.
No. You can't launder your illegal proceeds to pay off all the crimes you committed.
Right. No, you just
right?
can't take money that isn't yours and make a good
'Cause-
investment with it and then get all the money back. I mean, it just doesn't work like that. So it's
Yeah,
that's why it seems like no matter what happens here for it, at the end, he ends up in probably some minimal security jail for like a pretty long time. It's probably his
Probably.
expected outcome.
Yeah, I think maybe we could come up with a new phrase, which is, let's see, finance crimes. Somewhere in the equation, finance crimes, the three variables are losses, gains, and time. Like if you lose a certain amount of money, but you have enough time to gain it back, there was no crime. But if you just lose the money and you don't have enough time to gain it back, crime. I think is how it happens.
Well, you know what? You can lose money without committing crime.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's
So speaking of hindsight and 2020 and stuff, do we want to talk about HashiCorp's CEO?
Well,
Yeah.
I was thinking, we got the ongoing commentary about like, oh, open source business kind of hard, and then every time it happens, the people who change around their licensing. I think one of the common arguments is that like, well, someone's got to pay for this stuff.
Sure.
Right? Like, and if people are going to come in and shit on the commons, then what do you expect? We're going to have to put fences up, which, sure. I think it's also a case of like, at this point, and this comes to the great retrospective of like Docker company culture management. At this point in the open source world, it's kind of like, I mean, you kind of know what's going to happen. Like we've all but written the book, and maybe someone has written a book of just like, here's the cycle of a open source business model. This is what happens.
The
But
rug
maybe
pull is
I do
coming.
think
Yeah.
where we could go, because I think the HashiCorp CEO, again, it's just a lot of self-serving comments about the license change. And it's like, yeah, I don't know, we've been there before. But I do think the Docker article that was written here, Docker at 10, 3 things we got right and 3 things we got wrong. I do think inside of the 3 things I got wrong is a pretty good summary of how to think of this. And it's sort of like the 3 things they kind of talk about that they got wrong was adoption versus monetization, which was basically the company wasn't able to figure out how it was going to make money going early on. And that sort of hampered it. Right. And it makes total sense. But then they go on to say, it's like, team culture was then the next problem. But I would argue the fact that this adoption versus monetization thing was never figured out early, or, that's what led to this team culture. And I just thought this quote just really stood out to me, maybe because, I've had some personal experience with it, but I'll just read it here. It says, a specific example of what we got wrong was in having 2 separate groups of people in our company, one focused on open source in the community and the other on the business. This is one of my biggest regrets. It turned into a split brain in internal tooling, product and project management. And the most important, the team culture itself. It's hard to balance those competing interests for anyone. But when you split the roles, you end up with internal battles, inconsistencies, and open debates that can never be settled. Everybody is right from their perspective. And I just think that, to me, encapsulates the open source challenge. So when you start a company and someone joins it, like, you really want everyone to not only, like, maybe they're passionate because of the open source is why they want to join it, but they also need to be bought off on like, here's how we're going to make money. And we really believe, like, we all deeply believe that that's the way we should make money building this product, right? Whatever it is, however, whatever model it is. And as soon as you don't have that, as soon as you have some group that just says, that's the money guys, or that's the open source team, like, I feel like at that very, very moment, you've completely lost, right? And I just think, like, to me, it's like, wow, if I could just tell everyone that's going to start an open source company, like, you should read that. And if you don't have that figured out, you should, like, be honest with everyone up front. Be like, we haven't figured out how to make money, so we're going to have to, like, really iterate a lot. And then when we do figure out the business model, we need everyone to get on board with it. And if you don't want to be on board with it, that's your time to probably get away from it, because otherwise it's not going to be successful. So I thought that was really insightful and well written.
It was good. Well, once the Monktoberfest videos are online, there was a good one by from Anil, who now works at I think Crane, some UK based VC firm, and it was basically like, here's the the bald-faced VC role in an open source company. And to reduce down, there was a lot of great stuff in his talk, but as he kept repeating again and again, here's what I as a VC need. I need a 10 to 100x return on my cash.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Right.
Yep.
So like, and so therefore, right, like, I place all the bets, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I need. So of course, like, it's going to drive all of
But there is an answer. I mean, I think the answer, like, you could give an answer and say, okay, like, all right, we're going to try to return 10x this investment. And we can sit down and say, like, whatever project we were working on, be like, okay, we're going to build the open source version of it. And we're going to allow that to help us, grow the community, right?
Yes.
And create a lot of interest in our thing. And then we're going to tell the VC, it's like, and the way that we're going to make our money back. And then you have the choice, right? You could say, we're going to make our money back because we're going to host it as a service and people are going to pay for it. And that's easier. Or we're going to do this old support and licensing kind of thing, right? Or we're going to do some type of open core thing. But as soon as that happens, like, you need everyone in the room, the whole company to be like, I believe in open core. I understand why we're doing it. And yes, I understand people are going to be frustrated that not all the features are in the open source version, but I get it. I get why we're doing it. I'm going to advocate for that when I'm at the open source conference. I'm going to tell people this is the open source and this is the part you have to pay for, right? Or vice versa, where I'm going to tell people it's like, yeah, you can do that, but we make money through the SaaS version. And it's like, unless you get everybody on it, right? It's like, it doesn't work. Cause I just feel like I was talking, in the Slack, we were kind of talking this week about it, and many people kind of chimed in that they've been in these same meetings where it's just like, there's just this endless argument around, like, that's not open. Like, you hear people say, well, that's not open source, or you don't care about how to make money, or like, you think everything should be free. Why are you always worried about money? It's like, hey, we don't have alignment on the business model. That meeting never ends. And that's all you end up talking about for some months, if not years. So I was like, that's the part, and if you don't have good answers to all of it, if like, you can't say to the VC, you're like, I'm not sure how we're going to return your 10x money, and I'm not sure how we're going to monetize the open source thing. It's like, you just have to be super honest, right? And this is where it's like, okay, we're at the discovery phase, and it's going to be really bumpy, right? These next 6 to 12 months at this company, it's going to be a lot of churn. There's going to be a lot of infighting. There's going to be a lot of trial and error. So like, are you in? Do you want to sign up for that, right? You just got to know where you are.
Yeah. Maybe the principle is, there's always a business model, and you should know what it is before it knows what you are. We could phrase that a little better, but like, you got to make sure that's in the back of your head. Speaking of business models, not really, but do we have any bureaucracy this episode?
Just a few things. A couple things. One, as always, if you like a sticker, just send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. Couple pieces of follow-up though. Craig Box, friend of the show, he commented on that a few episodes ago. I think we were talking about like software tools at Google and how they do things at Google. And we talked about like, man, I wish there would somebody that show us more about it. Well, there's actually a whole write-up, a whole book called Software Engineering at Google. So if you want to read more about how they do things at Google, check out that link is in the show notes. So you should check that out.
Read it for free.
Yeah, read it for free. I think it's all just.
It's all in HTML. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think is it just in HTML? I think that's all it was.
Yeah, there's no PDF or EPUB, but you can get around that.
Read now. So lots of stuff to check out there. Then also wanted to let everyone know that Eric over at Harness, they're hiring a senior product marketing manager in platform engineering. So check that job out if you're looking. And also a little bit of kind of back to the Defaults Lifestyle. So the new Apple Podcast app is out. And for many of you, you're following the Defaults Lifestyle on your iOS device of choice. So you have a new version of the podcast app. So I just want to let you know a couple things that are in there. One, it looks like the show notes in the podcast app, much easier to read. And then two, you probably haven't known that like each episode of Software Defined Talk, we have some different artwork. So there you go. Now you can see the artwork for each individual episode if you want to actually check it out. And then so if you look at it, you'll see different artwork for different episodes. And then finally, if you've never used them, this is sort of like, I don't know, my annual reminder, like if you like chapter markers, which are just an easy way to skip through an episode if there are topics you are not interested in, or you want to go back and find that one. All the episodes have chapter markers in there. They usually have some type of very descriptive or maybe non-descriptive description of the segment. So that's all in there as well. So Apple Podcast app, it's a lot better now. I think it's a lot easier to find all those things. If you've been using Overcast or other things, that's been available for a while. So check out Apple Podcasts. And if the statistics are right, which I always wonder, probably 40% of you are using Apple Podcasts. So maybe there's some new features in there for you to check out.
And of course, if you haven't noticed the chapters before, go download all the episodes, and you don't have to listen to them.
Actually,
go through and check it out.
You should install multiple podcast players on your phone
That's right.
download all the episodes.
Yeah, I guess on the
Test it
chapters,
out.
just to give people more detail, like the feedback we get is kind of split. Like sometimes people like they feel like there's segments of the show, like especially at the beginning, it's sort of we'll call that like a meandering, fun conversation. Some people don't like that. That's fine. Well, you can just hit next.
You're missing out.
And then other people actually,
what are you here for?
Their significant others often say that's the only part of the show they will listen to. They don't want to hear any of the stuff where they're talking about technology. So if you need to skip the technology discussion, you can do that as well. So it doesn't matter. I don't care.
Straight to the recommendations.
So of course, listen to the whole show. But there's many podcasts I listen to where they have chapter markers, and I love it because I will often skip around. So it's like I am not offended. We are not offended if you skip around, or if you're with a loved one that only wants to hear the non-tech conversations. That's perfectly acceptable. So
you should put the podcast on their phone too, though.
That's right. Put it on their phone and then show them chapter markers, and they can be like, just press there. That's where you can always just listen to the non-tech segments. So there you go.
You can hear the Andy Rooney part if you know how to do the chapters when you get on to the real stuff. Well, there's several conferences. There's KubeCon North America in Chicago. Matt's going to be there. There's also a VMware discount code. Get out your pencil, whether it's pressure sensitive or not. And if you want to get 20% off, you can use a code from my work VMware, which is KCNA23VMWEO20. If you didn't write that down fast enough, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/437 and use that code.
Or if you're using an Apple Podcast, now's your chance to actually look at the show notes. It's easy to see. It'll actually be right there. That's how easy it is to see now.
Yeah, chapters, right? And if you're one of the people who's 2 to 3 years later downloaded all the episodes to listen, that code probably doesn't work anymore.
Sorry.
Try it anyways.
But thanks for listening.
Oh yeah, keep going. It only gets better. But also during that same time, I'll be at VMware Europe or EU in Explore. You know how these conferences go. I'm doing more and more as the date approaches, as people reach out and ask me to do things, which is fun. And then there's also the Risk V or 5 Summit, depending on how Roman you are, November 7th to 8th. And then we have that conference, January 29th, 2024 in Round Rock, Texas. I should start talking like that all the time. That would be fun. And if you're interested in us advertising your conference or, going to it or things like that, you should talk with us, because who doesn't love a good tech conference? Probably the people who like the first part of the show. But if you listen to the second part of the show, you must like a conference. So there's that. Now with that, Brandon, what do you have to recommend this episode?
My recommendation this week is a newsletter. It's called Installer. It's from The Verge, and I'll just read the description. It's a weekly newsletter designed to tell you everything you need to download, watch, read, listen, and stuff to explore. So it's the kind of thing where it's like, if you're interested in like, man, I wonder what the best notes app is. You're like, I've got like some weird requirements. Like they had a whole write-up about like, here are like the 10 best notes app. And then this week's or last week's was about like different apps to help you track like what you want to watch, which I'm always like trying to figure out how to do that better, right? It's like, oh, watch this, do this. And so there's, I'm testing out a few of them myself. So if you're like that, if you just like want to see what people are recommending and kind of like, if you will, the more artisanal, if you want to get off the defaults lifestyle and want to see what like the power users are using, like, for example, does the note-taking app support custom image background so I can upload my grid based artwork and use it?
My vintage graph paper.
That would be the kind of thing that would be covered in the installer. I like it. And so there's just, it's really detailed. It's really long, but I always find a couple things in there. At least I want to try. So check out the installer. It's from The Verge. If you like The Verge, you'll probably like it as well.
I'll have to check that out. How about yourself, Matt Ray? What do you have to recommend?
My recommendation is Dell customer support. My monitor started having some horizontal lines, and I was like, something's wrong. I looked up my warranty. I had 6 days left. I pinged Dell customer support, and within 30 minutes, I had a new monitor on the way.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's some
I want to
value.
know more. Did you have to like prove it? Did you have to send them a
Oh
picture?
yeah, I just sent them a photo of the monitor, like
nice.
in a test screen view, and
You
that showed
photoshopped
like
in like some
there was a Pokemon coming right out of the screen. No, it there was like LEDs going bad or something, so it had some weird horizontal lines, and like I gotta ship them the other one back, but brand new monitor. So there's some value to be had buying direct, I guess.
There you go. See, now Matt Ray, lifetime Dell screen customer. It's like always works. That's a nice benefit of being like a mega company, is like once there's proof that something's wrong in a customer support scenario, generally the big companies are just like, all right, sure, fix it, done, see you later. They're just like not a big deal. Well, my recommendation is a movie I finally finished watching tonight because I have kids with my wife Kim. Evil Dead Rises. Now
you watch that with the kids?
No, because we have kids, so we have to stop watching it.
Gotcha.
But you see the name Evil Dead, and I didn't actually look at the credits for who made it. And you're like, is this related to the Evil Dead series of movies? And of course, but it starts off where you're kind of like, I guess it could be, or are they stealing ideas from here? But then it gets more and more just exactly copying, not exactly copying, but having all sorts of like things like the chainsaw and the flying demon view, all that kind of stuff. But it's fine. It's good. It has the male child. He has that kind of like Euro trash mullet that I'm fascinated with nowadays. So I got to check that out for a while, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Well, speaking of things I've enjoyed, this has been another episode of Software Defined Talk, episode number 437. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, things we talked about, other things we didn't, that fantastic discount code to get 20% off of KubeCon North America, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/437. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, man, I know you got to run, so we'll say goodbye to you. But I did want to quickly, I don't know, is it Edo Linux? Hey, thanks for the
Carl.
Okay, thanks for the tip on Apple. So yeah, it's just for everyone watching. So some real-time feedback is that people at Apple do use pages, numbers, and Keynote. In fact, some people have even walked out of the meeting because the wrong Keynote template was used. Wow.
Oh,
I wish I could be in a meeting where I was like, felt confident enough, like, yep, you didn't use the right template, I'm leaving. I've never done that.
Brandon, start your own company, and the first person you hire and first person to quit will probably do that.
Like what level VP? Like with a VP, like I'm not going to be at this meeting because the template's wrong. I'd be interested to know. Like
it would have to be a big enough company that like that kind of crap still flies. I don't think that doesn't happen at startups. Well, I
still want the meeting bad, but if I was the person, I'd feel like I have to come back for the meeting later. It's like, we're here. Let's just do it. Let's just get it done. Right.
Oh,
maybe maybe you would just reprimand them. Like, hey, next time use the right template.
Yeah.
Now let's get on to it. So that's good though. So, all right. Well, thanks for everyone else who watched this week. Michael, always good to have you on as well. We'll hopefully be back next week, probably around the same time. Oh, you know what I forgot, Kote? Once again, I forgot to put it in the Slack. So that was my bad. Good job, Michael, for finding it anyway. So for all of the hardcore people that actually found out without having a reminder, even better. You truly are the super fans of Software Defined Talk. All right. And with that, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.